Hello, welcome to Lawmaster's Land. I'm your Lawmaster here for a little extra video this week. As we all know, the GodsRain prophecies have come to an end, and this Tuesday is when we're getting information on the god who is going to die. Now, before I did my Tianchi videos, I made a guess on which god was going to die. However, that was before we started getting the GodsRain prophecies, and we were given a hard date on when we were going to get the actual information on who was going to die. So, now that we have gotten the last of the GodsRain prophecies, we have 10 who are safe and 10 still on the chopping block. I'm going to, again, go through each of the options, this time going through all 10 instead of just highlighting the big ideas, but quickly go through all 10, give my thoughts on all of them, and basically estimate the likelihood that each of them are going to die, from the least likely to, well, the 3 now who are the top picks. That said, I just want to make clear before starting, and I'll probably make clear again at the end. At this point, there is none among these 10 who are safe. At the beginning, you could say, Paizo would never do this, Paizo would never do that, but as the GodsRain prophecies have gone on, we've seen every idea and estimation we had of how this was going to work out be tossed aside. I think if you're still saying that there's any among these 10 who has 0 chance of being chosen, then you need to read the GodsRain prophecies again. Everyone's on a chalkboard block, it's just that some we have more likelihood of it being them, and some we have less likelihood of it being them. So, with that stated, going through from what I believe are the least likely to the most likely. First, least likely, number 10, we have Gaza. I know there's some people who are gung-ho about it being Gaza, it being the GodsRain prophecies instead of the GodsRain prophecies, whatever. However, when it comes to what would be the consequences of them dying, how it would lead to the war, I don't see anything major happening from Gaza's death. We've seen from the GodsRain prophecies how there has been effects from every god when that happened after they die, and Gaza, yes, is the weather, is wind and water and all of that, but compiling it, I don't think that Gaza's death would result in a war, which that is mainly what we're looking for, the war. Also, Gaza, as we usually have them, is a depiction of them, the wind and water, male and female. Overall, Gaza was more of nature itself than anything that can be physically manifested as we have thought of it. So Gaza actually being the one to die would be the largest surprise out of the remaining ones, honestly. Now, the next 2 I'm going to put at the same level-ish, one slightly more likely than the other, but next 2 are Calistria and Tuareg. Now, both of these have, again, I'm not sure how either of these would result in a large-scale war. I'm sure the Dwarfs might be ticked off that their god's dead, and the Elves might be mildly inconvenienced that one of the deities is dead, it's Elves. But how it would cause something as large scale as something known as the War of the Immortals with either of them dying, I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna rank Toreg a little more likely because we recently had some draw things that hint that Toreg is doing something. But just the main racial deities is not what I think is going to be enough to flip the tide to war. But that is the ones that I don't think would result in a large-scale war even if they did die. However, well, let's draw the line here between them and 7 remaining that I think would cause something large enough to be known as the War of the Immortals. So 6 and 7 I'm going to have the same because they're ones that I still don't think are going to be who Paizo chooses. But over the course of these last few weeks, I've come up with interesting ideas of how their death would result in a large-scale conflict. And that's going to be Gorm and Norgabur. Now, Gorm, I'm not the only one who's thought this, reading the Reddits and everything, but Gorm, his death resulting in one final grand war, that is something that I've came up with myself the first couple weeks of this, and I like the idea of that. So, yeah, have him higher than the I don't see a war people. And at the same level, Norgabur, well, he's the god of secrets, the god of the back alleys, the shadows of all the gods. If he must have some contingency of if he dies. And barring that, there would still be lots of underworld deities that would stagger for his place. Either of those possibilities potentially resulting in conflict that would balloon out of control. But while those are both good ideas, I do not, again, think that they will be who dies. Next up, at number 5, we have Abadar. Now, his is the clearest, I think, of how it would end up as a large-scale conflict. The god of civilization, the most lawful one. He gets taken out, everything starts crumbling, war is going to follow shortly after. Again, he's not one of my top picks, but he's at a spot where I think that it's more likely than not that he might be a possibility. It's nowhere near the top 3 or 4 if you want to include our next one, but he's still a solid pick. So if you're rooting for Abadar to die, then death to capitalism, I guess. Number 4 is Iomedae. Now, this theory has been floated by a lot of people, and mostly it puts their hands on that Erasni is going to be the replacement. So, of course, it must be Iomedae, since they're both related to not Abadar. I'm not blanking on his name. He doesn't matter. Eredin. Eredin doesn't matter. He's never mattered. Anyway, they're both related to Eredin, so of course it must be Erasni replacing Iomedae at the end of the day, right? Which I don't think is solid thinking. I think they both can be related to Eredin and be in the same top 20 pantheon, or however you want to vocalize the 20 deities we have. But so I don't really buy into that. However, I would say that the likelihood of her death starting a war, not unlike what happened when Aroden died, then I would say that, which would have put her about equal to Arador before. However, going through the GodsRain prophecies, it has been noted that 3 of our deities make a lot of appearances in the GodsRain prophecies, with Iomedae appearing in the most, even if she's not mentioned the most. So that little fact is enough to push her slightly ahead of Abaddon into the 4th rank spot. However, she's not one of the top picks. And this is the line where we go from maybes, I can see how it's going to happen, to the actual top picks, the actual ones that we have actual theories and evidence for. Because if we're being honest, the first 7 are guesses. There's been no hints or anything that points to them being the deity that dies. Guessing them is just a random guess. The top 3, we actually have a reason to guess them. So let me do this in no particular order, and then rank how I think they are afterwards. First, we have Shaylin. She was one of the 2 that I had as the top picks before the GodsRain prophecies, and both of them are still there. But since the beginning of that, we also had the GodsRain prophecies, which we had specifically the one for Zon-Kuthon. Now, at the end of that, I remember people saying that the Zon-Kuthon one also makes it so that Shaylin must be safe, but no. Looking through it, it's 100% possible for that to be what actually happens, but instead of Dubral breaking free of Zon-Kuthon and somehow destroying it, then maybe Zon-Kuthon gets freed and combines with Shaylin to get us the Zon Shaylin that we put on and off for the past few Starfighter things. But Zon Shaylin is mostly the reason that she is still one of the top picks, because we still don't have fully an idea of what that is, whether it is that she's somehow combined with Zon-Kuthon, or whether it's just a pantheon between the 2 siblings. But by the time we know that, we will have the dead gods, so Shaylin's still in the top picks. And the other ones that were previously in the top picks was, of course, Sanrei. Because no matter what justifications or theories people come up with of why it can't possibly be Sanrei, it still doesn't wipe away the fact that we have been promised that the sun will die. That one line alone has been hanging over Sanrei's head since before we've announced that we've had announcements that a god would die. So, and the GodsRain prophecies have done nothing to assuage that fear. In fact, it's possibly intensified it by showing twice instances where Sanrei has gone off the deep end and her actions have either pushed away those close to her or caused widespread destruction. So, people have been looking through and seeing that what we have for the exemplars don't specifically mention that it's the god who had died, which is the same as the god who will be ripped apart and have their god essence empower exemplars. But if it isn't, then it's going to be a strange coincidence. I am fully certain that Sanrei is in trouble. Again, it could be any of the 20, but Senrei hasn't moved that far from my top pick, is how I will phrase it. However, outside of these two, we have a newcomer now. Now, if you've been on the Reddits, on the blogs, on anything that has been discussing the GodsRain prophecies, you will, well, notice that one has been missing at this point, but also know why she's missing. Lamashtu, the only deity who was never named in the GodsRain prophecies. Now, this is one of the most solid of the theories, since the GodsRain prophecy specifically told us to look at them together, to see what patterns we could find. And the most obvious pattern is that one of the 20 is not there. And me, being a mystery fan who's cut their teeth on Omi Nico, some twisted logic like that is a detail you're not going to miss. And also, as putting together the stories and examining them, we see touches of Lamashtu's domains. We've seen 2 of the deaths being caused by beasts outside of any known reckoning that then go on to cause more and more harm. And we also see a lot of these GodsRain prophecies related to the fears of the deities. Both together happen to be under the domains of Lamashtu, of nightmares, of monstrosities, of aberrations. So, the stories have Lamashtu's prints all over them, even if she isn't named. However, and I'm not the first person who came up with this, I read some other people mention this before the thought came to my mind, but there's not a guarantee that even if she's related to prophecies, that she is the one who died. Some people have said that she might have offered them, or that she might have some connection to the GodsRain prophecies. And she might have connections to the god that dies, not as the victim, but as the killer. Which, I can't deny that possibility. It's certain to say that Lamashtu will be involved in whatever goes down when the god dies in some way. But we cannot be sure what side of the knife she's on. So, at the end of that, I would have to say that I would put Lamashtu, now that we have the GodsRain prophecies, as the number 2 possibility. I would have Shaylin is knocked down a bit to number 3, though she's, again, still the top 3 possibilities. And I'm still sticking up with Senrei as number 1. Because as much circumstantial evidence that we have that Lamashtu is involved somehow, the only thing we've been told will die is the sun. But that's my unscripted thoughts. I'll be having this go live at the beginning of Sunday, and await the rest of you with the countdown to Tuesday, the day that we will lose one of our gods. Whether it be Senrei, Shaylin, Lamashtu, or one of the other 7. But either way, someone is going to lose their favorite deity, and everyone's still on a chopping block. So, let's see how right it was next time. I should also probably mention, the reason I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but the reason I'm doing this today is because I was planning on doing this before the live stream, but I thought it was going to be on Wednesday during lunch hour instead of right after I'm done with work on Tuesday. Still will probably get off and set up in time to have a live stream of the, well, me live streaming their live stream, but so that I will be there and people who want to hang out with me as we see which god dies can. But I won't have time to give my final thoughts right before that like I was originally planning to when I thought it was on Wednesday. But they're here. You guys can judge how well I am at my guesses. But now actually signing off. See y'all Tuesday.